I was wondering, to make it easier, is Dora Rose still here?
I'm right here.
Yeah, can we kind of go through them according to her list so that we can, and then we might draw our attention to where it appears on our list.
Number one on the list is Casey Joseph. Joseph Casey on Lee Road.
Oh, we don't have them by name.
It's showing that he has lived and voted in that area for years, but we have nobody registered by that name.
Say it again.
It's saying on the list here, lived and voted in that area for years, but we have no Joseph C. Casey by that date of birth in our database.
Did you go back and check the drop files and so
Yes.
forth? Still didn't find anything?
May I ask, what are the drop, you went back and looked to see if he was purged, or is that the drop
We
files?
checked the voter files from the 2004
Yeah,
presidential election and the 2005 general election.
okay.
And this name did not, none of these names hit that list.
So he has an affidavit here that says he's been living at the same place for 36 years and been voting for all that time at the same address. And can't understand why there's no record of his registration, but you're saying that he didn't vote in the presidential election. Would that have led to him being purged? Is that possibly what happened?
Well, if he was purged, you would have a record of that, and you did check
It
the
would
purge
still be,
file.
he would still be in the system as canceled if he was purged, but he's not in the system at all.
Has this happened? I mean, I know that it's happened before, that we've had mysteries where people have disappeared from the rolls. Has there been any way that you've devised to find out what happened to those people? Why they've been dropped with no?
I think, if I can correct Ms. Rose, is I think the problem that we have with people not getting into the system, I don't think that the problem is dropping them out of the system, am I correct? Wasn't the problem in 2004 getting some into the system? I think that's...
Okay, so this is not something that you're familiar with, other than researching back to see if they voted in the last election and finding them on a dropped list. Okay.
If I'm correct, there was that process that Dr. Robbins and staff and myself had outlined, and that was not only looking at 2004, but looking at 2005 too, as well as 60 days from leading up to the election. Those respective databases.
Okay.
Information.
Okay.
I think the other thing is, if you find out more after this, there's always that opportunity for demanding the certification after it's an 81-day
Yeah.
statute.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Franklin, did we check his voting record for 2002? Did we find that out?
No, we don't have the books for that.
Yeah, it's a 5-year. I believe it's 6.
Six-year proposal.
It's early 2002. This is 2007.
Well, we did the comparison of the 2004 general and 2005 general for the names that were possibly merged and dropped off.
Is it possible?
Oh, okay, that's a key question.
Right.
You did go back to the inactive file, you did go back to the purge file, am I correct?
We went back to the actual poll book file that was printed, the poll books that were printed in 2004 presidential election and the 2005 general election. The actual CDs that the poll books were printed off of.
Yeah. And if you go back in, he's not there in 4 and 5.
Granted,
Went back to the purge file, he's not there.
But did he say, as Rose, that he voted in 2004, 2005?
This one didn't specifically say that. He said, here's what he said. Board of Elections did not have my name in poll book or on additional list of electors. Upon calling BOE, they had no record of my registration. I've lived at the same address for 36 years. And then on the front he says, name not listed in poll book, Board of Elections had no record of registration. Voter has voted here many years and has lived in the same location for 36 years. So he didn't reference the last date of his vote. The next one does. The next one, John Wilburn, says that he voted in 2004 at the same polling place.
And what did we find from Mr. Wilburn?
I'm sorry,
What did we find from Mr. Wilburn?
there's no record in the system at all. For Mr.
And he wasn't on the poll books in 4,
No.
and he wasn't in the poll books in 5.
He writes here,
Do we know whether he voted a provisional ballot in 4 by any chance?
If it was rejected, I could probably look that up.
he writes, I'm not in the poll book or the supplemental sheet. I have a valid current state ID with a picture. I voted here at King Kennedy in 04. Since I lived here then and still live here, I should have been in the poll book. That's his
Possibly
statement.
he voted a provisional in 04, and it was rejected, thinking that he was registered at that time. I mean, if they're not in the system, I don't know what else to do. I don't see them in the poll book or in the system.
Mr. Chairman. I don't know, excuse me, Candace Hogue for the Monitor. I don't know whether you're still keeping the paper voter registration records by alphabetical or at all, but beginning in 2004's presidential, you had use of the DIM system, which the CERT report, using staff documents here, had documented were dropping voters from the registration rolls for a variety of reasons. And one question then is there a paper record for this gentleman someplace in the board? Because there have been some problems with DIM's registrations. So,
Well, I'm going to ask Jessica Heiner. I mean, those are the problems that I understood that were corrected. Am I correct? And we have the ability to pick up those that were previously dropped.
Jessica Heiner, Diebold Election Systems. Mr. Bennett, I'm not sure that I specifically know each incident and how they've been resolved, but I know that in conversations that I've had with your staff members, they've indicated that they were resolved. So I can go back and get the history on what those issues were and get that information back to you, but I don't have enough knowledge about DIMS in general to be able to answer that for you correctly, accurately.
Thank you. I would like, Jessica, I would like you to follow up on that so that we have documentation in here into the board because what happens is these problems get resolved, but then they kept getting repeated and repeated and repeated on down the line until they become an urban legend. And what I'm trying to do is get the factual information up here in the record so that we have a clear record of what happened and how it was resolved. One of the things that this board, I think, is having a problem with is there are problems in every election, and we are attempting to address those problems. But once they get addressed, people either have to accept them or they have the right to not accept them, but at the same time, we have to move on. And without that information specific, I'd like you to work with the board to get it, because it did involve the DIM system. This board has been told that all of those were corrected, that there were missing documents, there were missing registration. They were picked up, and I'd like to just verify that that's the case. Will you do that for us?
Yes.
Thank you.
I actually,
Mr. Director, before we leave that, Mr. Franco, do our files still contain the original paper records?
The original paper record was scanned to the computer, so it's attached to the voter's data record in the computer.
Okay, I'll ask the question a different way. I understand the information has been scanned in the computer, and we had a problem with scanning recently, but after having said that, are the original paper registration records still available to this board?
Yes, they are. They're in the storage facility. I'm not even sure where they're at Independence or on Independence Road. Gary? Gary's.
What scanning problem did we have?
No, I talked to the director about it. In some instances, when we scan the names in recently, we also,
You're talking about that's a known issue. You're talking about the signature scan, as opposed to but we're talking about the actual registration card scan. That's a separate issue.
Gary Barney, Executive Assistant to the Director and Deputy Director of the Board of Elections. All the hard copy cards are stored in an off-site facility on Operable Canal Road. They're all stored in the, they're all scanned by the county recorder's office for us.
They've all been scanned into the system?
Yes, every card that we had in the system has been scanned into the system. They can be pulled up. I have a disk that we can have information services pull up. We can find a card by a box number. There's about 500 boxes of registration cards at the off-site facility.
I think Gary.
How many cards total?
Well, we're about 5,000 or more.
What,
More than 5,000 cards.
We're talking about
1,000,005.
Over a million cards.
How many?
Over a million
We
cards.
scanned in all of the registration cards in '05. That was one of the big projects that we
In
did.
the system? That we had in the system, whether they were dropped or not, am I correct?
Yeah, what we did in '05 was we had every signature, well, not every signature scan, we had the majority of the signature scan. We wanted to move away from that and scan in the entire registration card itself. That was a project that was held and that we contracted out with, kind of agreement with the county recorder's office.
I remember that.
And so we scanned in all those records, that way we did not have to manually sort them and organize them. So those are now essentially in batches and boxes. The actual original cards are in boxes in our archive facility. Where's the archive facility?
Alpha Canal Road.
Okay, now, let's deal with these not registered, that Mr. President brings up. What I would like to do, Gary, don't leave,
Yes, okay.
because you have this.
Yes.
You have the magical disc that has 2 million records on it, from what I understand, or 2 million cards or whatever.
There's more than one disc, if I'm correct. It's something that,
We have one disc. They created one disc for us.
of all the records.
Yes.
Okay. And I assume that that's been sorted some alphabetical listing that would show the batch? No.
It's done by batch number.
But there ought to be a way to search it very rapidly for a specific name and address.
They can call it up.
correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So we could take Ms. Rose's 14 names that are not registered and run them against that file.
I don't know if we can do it today, though.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
We have 80, here's the point I'm getting. Let's say that she finds some people that should have been, for some reason or other, the vote should have been counted. We'll see that gets into the system and we'll recertify the election. I want her to be satisfied as to the reasons that people get. For instance, we know, that people will always tell you that they're registered to vote, and we know that they aren't.
That's correct.
Because it's the American way. You got it. I mean, everybody's registered to vote, right? I mean, that's our obligation. But we know that people don't always tell us the truth. It's kind of like take an exit poll. People don't always tell you the truth. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to get her list of those 14. And I'd like to run back and search every record that we have going back pretty far in those boxes. And then I'd like you to do one other thing. I'd like you to identify the box that it's in and maybe pull. Would you be satisfied with a copy of the original, or would you like to see
I would
the
be,
file itself, because it may be that they haven't voted too, that they may have been registered at one time.
I'd like to see the file, but I would also accept a copy. I'd like to see. There are a few other strange problems within this. For example, there's one that was rejected as not registered, but his dead father's name is still in the poll books, and his name has been removed, and they have the same name. So there are some individual problems like that that I'd also like to address. But for the general non-registered, I think your solution is a reasonable one.
If that would be satisfactory, we will be happy to amend the report and clear some of these up. Okay, Gary, what about the list we want to do? We work with Ms. Rose on that?
Yeah, we'll get the list and we'll compare it against the file and see what happens.
Okay. That still leaves us with 5 that had other reasons for rejection.
Kathy's going through the November of '04 poll books right now to see if she could find any of these in case the report was generated incorrectly. Just as a double check.
Can we work on all these and address and satisfy Ms. Rose as to all 19 of these?
The next one is John Wilburn. He's in the system as a fatal pen. He registered under a commercial address. So he is not registered.
He registered.
He changed his address since the 2004. It's saying here voted in the 2004 presidential election. It appears he has changed his address since then and tried to register from a commercial address. We rejected it and sent him a letter saying you cannot be registered from a commercial address, and he has never responded to our letter. So he is in a not registered status.
Is the reason that he has a voter ID because he was from a previous registration?
He does have a voter ID from a previous registration, but when he tried to register from a commercial address, that put him in a fatal pending status.
Okay. Okay.
So he failed to, so he would, he's not registered. He just,
Correct.
okay. There's an explanation of what happened to his.
Right.
Do you have any others? Mike, why don't you just address all 19 of them and bring them back to the board, as many as you can. For Ms. Rose, and any of them that should be counted, that you find that should be counted, this board will take it, we will vote on the matter, and if they should be counted, we will add them to the
Okay,
certified
that's fine.
vote.
And Mike, I just want to talk to you about some of the odd little things about some of these people afterwards. Thank you.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
Mr. Chairman, Michael, you currently have answers for all 19 or 15 of the 19?
Oh, yes, that's fine.
Well, 15 I have to do with not being registered, and the others have other issues.
We can answer some of these right here and now if you want.
Pardon?
We can answer a few of these right here. Or do you want to just wait and just go?
I have to take up board time with this. We can figure it out and come back to the board since we have to come back anyway.
If you can get them all resolved by tomorrow, that'd be fine. I mean, then we're only dealing with maybe 1 or 2 of them. But if you can't, we can adjust.